Welcome to Positive Filter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career with a little self-help around the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope that what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place. We're live. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It's Philip Wilkerson back with another episode of Positive Filter. I'm joined by a very special guest because everyone is a special guest to me, OK Inya. So, quite honestly, this is our first time meeting each other on the podcast, but I'm always open to people reaching out to me on Facebook or LinkedIn, and we connected through LinkedIn, particularly because we're both members of Alpha Phi Alpha. And OK was like, hey, man, let me get on your podcast and talk about the book. And so I got a chance to read a little bit about his book, and it aligns with the message of Positive Filter, a very positive, inspirational brother. So I wanted to give him an avenue to talk about his book. But for the listeners, give a little background about yourself, OK?
Yeah, so thank you for having me, Philip. I appreciate you. So my background, I grew up in Chicago, Southside Chicago, and I moved out here 4 years ago to work on Capitol Hill. My background is in medicine, public health, health policy, politics research, and teaching. And I'm currently on the Hill. That's my 9 to 5, but I also have a business on the side as an entrepreneur, as an author entrepreneur. And so I wrote my first book and released it last year. It took me about 90 days to write the book, about 40 actual hours to write it. And so I launched it on my birthday last year, November 22nd. And so, this is kind of part of my career trajectory. I want to, just kind of explore how I could share my background, how I got from Chicago to Capitol Hill, and all that entails as a conscious black male, and really just kind of be transparent about my story and my experiences. And so I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk and to share, and hopefully it's timely and informative and inspiring. So
yes, it definitely is. I mean, I think anyone that shares their story to share to help others is inspiring. So you have quite the trajectory from Chicago. And to come up and do that. Can you explain some of the hardships that you have experienced as a child, and maybe some of the inspirational things that people will learn from reading your book?
Sure. So my parents are from Nigeria, and so just being different culturally presented its own unique set of challenges. So having a different name, eating different types of foods, speaking a different language, all of that kind of created, it made it very challenging for me to, I guess, fit in or have a sense of belonging. And so I was often bullied and picked on at times, and I just had a sense of rejection and just not being accepted. And so I kind of carried that throughout childhood, and just not being, just not fitting in. And so that sense of rejection, it carried into high school and then into college, and I just felt, out of place. And so being the oldest of 6 children, I have 2 brothers and 3 sisters, and so all of us kind of went through the same kind of bicultural challenge, right? So being from a different country, different language, food, whatnot. And so we were challenged with trying to adjust to the American way of life, the culture, and whatnot. And so it wasn't until I actually got to college where, when I actually pledged my fraternity, like that was like my first sense of actually feeling like I came home. Like,
oh wow.
I mean, like the brothers, like they welcomed me. It was just like all love,
Yeah.
And it was so life transforming because I had so many issues and just traumatized growing up, and then finally, kind of discovering the safe space that I could be me and like let down the mask and just like really flow in my element and like be authentically me as a black male, as an African American male.
But that's interesting to say that even as a black male, because like I think a long couple issues I say, when you act a certain way, people call you white and say you act white,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
it's like this inner this I don't know, not say crabs in a bucket, like this conflict within, like why are we teasing each other? And
Yeah.
so I'm very interested. You're saying that you were growing up in Chicago and you were teased by black kids. But if you think about it, we're both black. We're both
Right.
African. You know, I may say hyphen African American, but I just did my 23andMe, and I'm about I'm Nigerian, and shout out to my Ghanaian roots and all
Uh,
that. So we are the same. But that's just interesting. Do you ever find that paradoxical? You know what I'm saying? Like we're both I'm not from America.
right.
So how do you feel about that?
Yeah, so it was just kind of this sense of, I guess, kind of confusion at times, and just not knowing my place in the world or in my current or in any space. And I just evolved into whose I was, and that was just a process of kind of learning, of educating myself, of having mentors, and really
Hmm.
having this thirst for knowledge and having an interest in learning about who I was culturally and spiritually for that matter. And so
Hmm.
I think what also helped was the fact that, and not everyone has this blessing, but to go home to Nigeria when I was in my early 20s.
Wow.
And like, that whole experience, going home to the motherland, like everything about me made sense. Like, this is why I speak the way that I do. This is why I think the way I do. This is why I behave the way, like, all of those nuances, like everything came together and like made sense.
That's awesome.
And so that was kind of anchoring for me, and that kind of helped to kind of stabilize my sense of self, and I carried that with me, going further, and I still find myself yearning for that sense of identity, that sense of family, where if you go to an African nation, for example, and you're surrounded by people that look like you, that are running the country, that is so empowering and affirming. And so, an
Hmm.
example here is Black Panther, the movie. I mean, that movie was just phenomenal in terms of creating that imagery, that space for people of color to feel like affirmed in a white dominated society. So
Wow.
I think for me it's a matter of having the family support there, the frat brothers there, my church family there, just like trying to pull on all those different networks to really gain a sense of self that helped me to get to where I am today.
True, true. And, I mean, I don't know. I'm not gonna rock the boat, but it seems like there's a heavily African influence in Alpha.
Yeah.
I was gonna say like I don't think there's many. Like there's like full lines of straight African dudes
Right.
in certain chapters of Alpha, and
Yeah.
I find that and I find the symbolism as well. Like we may have the Greek letters, but we have a lot of Egyptian and
Right.
African symbolism. So when you were in your I'm gonna do a lot of pivots just to let you know I'm a
Okay.
random guy. So we're gonna go all over the
Okay.
place. Hold on,
Sure.
we're still gonna talk about your book.
Yeah.
But when you were going through and learning about fraternity and Greek life,
Hmm.
was that African symbolism and all that? Was that what attracted you to Alpha?
To some degree, yes. I think so. My experience, and I write about this in my book, is that my experience, because growing up, I wasn't exposed to Greek life, and so my first, kind of exposed to Greek life was in college. And when I first saw the alphas, like I just knew right away. I'm like, yep, that's gonna be me next semester. Like I just knew there was no question. I mean, it was the way that the brothers carried themselves, what they did on campus, the way that they dressed. I mean, their swagger, like everything about the brothers on the campus, just like resonated with me. And then to find out the rich history and the legacy of the fraternity, I mean, it was just phenomenal. And so I'm like, man, this is a powerful brotherhood where I felt like I could really fit in and really, give back as well, and so, to some degree, yes, I was glad that the symbolism, that the symbolism was what it was, and I was glad that just made it, that's just solidified my interest and my passion in learning about the rich history, of my people. So yeah.
Now, and then you said you're one of six, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
Now, with going with your Nigerian parents,
Yeah.
I assume this is another stereotype, but it's a positive one, that education is a very, very important influence in African families.
Yeah.
They want their kids to be lawyers, doctors, engineers, right?
Right.
So what was that like growing up in Chicago? Tell the listeners a little bit about the importance of education growing up, or even while being bullied, that they were talking about you going to college and things like that. Was that a big major, you're going to go to college kind of thing?
Right.
Your family.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, you're right in that. My parents, and I think it's part and parcel of the Nigerian culture is to cultivate that sense of pursuing higher education. So there was no question that you wouldn't go to college. Like,
Right.
part of it was because, I was surrounded by people like uncles and aunts and, whoever in the family that were college graduates, that were, doctors and professors and lawyers and, very accomplished. And so, growing up in that culture, in that environment, like there was no question, like you could not at least get a college degree,
Right.
and like that was your baseline, and then to get a master's, I mean, yeah, that's a natural next step.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then you got to at least wrap it up with a doctorate of some sort, whether it's JD, PhD, MD, whatever doctorate. I mean, that's like second nature.
You keep up with the Joneses, right? That's how it is. Like,
right.
Yeah, it's like it's like, of course, when you go meet each other, like, what do you do for a job? And it has to be at that level, right? And I'm only saying that, and sometimes we say stereotypes are not good or not, but for most of the young African generations I see, a lot of focus on achievement and scholarship.
Yeah.
And it is like, oh, you're just doing that, like you
Right.
got to keep up, and that's a positive thing. I kind of like that aspect of the culture, is that achievement and academics and scholarship is held to a level where you got to keep up on it. If you're not, like, I don't know. It just seems like you're not cutting the mustard. And
Right.
That's kind of, I know it's bad to say it, but it's like a positive motivational thing. Like, I got to, get this education because like everyone else is getting education.
Right.
Positive peer pressure kind of thing.
Definitely.
So out of the 6, do you all go to college?
Yeah, yeah. So we all at least have a bachelor's degree, and I'm actually working on my doctorate right now. I'm working on a doctorate in public health at GW. I have a brother who has a master's degree in exercise physiology. I have a sister who's a nurse, and she's looking to get a doctorate in nursing.
Doctorate in nursing, yeah, wow.
Right, and then the two younger sisters, one of them is the JD PhD, and her twin is a PhD, and the twin that has the JD PhD, she's actually running for mayor of Chicago right now. So right, it's crazy. So the youngest,
the black sheep is someone that just probably has a bachelor's, like that's like.
Well, so he's the youngest, and he's actually frat and came through the same chapter I did in college, but he actually runs a state agency. So he's working on like a master's, I think, in business, soon. So it's like,
wow.
Right.
The parents not paying for all these schools, right? You're self-funded, right?
Right.
What kind of money? What the money? Like, Jesus Christ!
Right.
I mean, that's quite astounding. So, what were your parents' occupation?
Yeah. So my dad is a full professor. He actually just retired. I think it was this past May. He was teaching for I think close to 30 years actually. And so he taught mass communications. And my mom actually, man, that's crazy. So my mom now currently is working on her doctorate. So it's like, I don't know what's going on, bro. I think it's something in the water, man. I don't know.
No. So did y'all grow up with a little bit of hard times financially, or y'all all did well because of high achievement?
Yeah, so we came from we came from very humble beginnings. We didn't have much growing up because it was so many of us, and
Hmm.
we so my parents did a good job of not kind of showing that we were living in meager means. They made sure that we were well fed, that we had clothes on our back, that we that we're taken care of. But just kind of looking back now, it was a miracle or blessing that we
Yeah.
were all able to live relatively comfortably in spite of the large family and the fact that them as immigrants were
Hmm.
pretty much starting from the ground up in America, right? And so that presents its own unique set of challenges. So yeah, they did well. They made sure to instill values in us that have helped all of us to get to where we are today.
Wow, that's quite amazing.
Yeah.
So you went to college, and you let's do a little, it's a little pivot. Is that you studied? You're in the health profession,
Right.
right? And you're in Capitol Hill, so you mixed in health with a little bit of politics. How did you get involved in politics?
Yeah, so in college, my bachelor's degree is in bio and biochemistry, and so my whole thing was actually to become a medical doctor. And so
Yeah.
for close to about 10 years, that was my whole goal. My whole dream was to become a medical doctor. But what happened was that I took the medical college, the it's called the medical college, medical college admissions test.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's a test that you have to take to get into med school. So I took that test 4 times over the course of a decade. I applied to med school 3 times before finally getting into med school. And then what happened was I left med school after 3 years. Right? I just it was so I got into a school that um, was not the safest place for black males in
Oh
terms
wow.
of graduating. It was a very hostile, toxic environment, and I didn't have the support that I needed to really do well. But
Yeah.
what happened was that I discovered that part of my passion was not just seeing patients as a physician, but also looking at health equity and health disparities and health policy. And so
More
um,
macro than micro.
right. And so what happened was that even as I was getting into med school, I knew that the vision was going to be a lot bigger than just seeing patients as a physician. So, at the time, my thinking was, okay, MD, MPH, MD, PhD, some combination of those degrees, right? So I left med school after 3 years, and I moved back home to Chicago, to my parents, and I took a year to recalibrate. And so the question was, okay, well, what's next? So I applied to masters of public health programs, in Chicago, and I got into the one um, at Chicago State University. I did well in that program, graduated in 2014, and so the question then became, okay, well, what's next? I, I my focus in the graduate program was health policy and black men. So I was looking for opportunities to really kind of take a deeper dive into the health policy space. So I applied to several fellowships and I applied to a few doctoral programs, and I ultimately got into the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation Health Policy Fellowship on Capitol Hill, where I spent a year on the House side and a year on the Senate side before coming to my current role at the Department of Health and Human Services.
Wow.
So
So a lot of, and I love that. That's kind of like what I love about the podcast and love about just career journeys is that it's most people see the tip of the iceberg and see that, but they don't see the pivoting and the
right,
changing and oh maybe I have to figure this out or
right,
leave medical school and like for a lot of people out there, that could be very inspiring because you don't, you kind of just go with certain things and try new things.
Right.
Try. Did you like when you try to pivot and you had these? Did you have a lot of angst during these times of adjustments? Like, dang, what am I gonna do next? Kind of things. Did you have that? And when you did have those feelings, did you seek, career counselors? How did you know what to do to pivot next? Did you have you say you had mentors? What were some things that helped you when you were about to make these really strong pivots in your career?
Absolutely. Yeah. So my first bout with trauma or depression actually came in med school. And it was at that time where, I didn't even know that I was depressed. Like I just did, like I was just kind of going through the motions, but I got burned out, and it got to the point where they were trying to kick me out, of med school because I wasn't doing well. And so part of what I did was, and this was the blessing of having the fraternity, was that one of the brothers who was kind of affiliated with the med school, he actually served as kind of an advisor for black students at that particular med school, and in fact, he was a member of the chapter in the community where the med school was at, and so I reached out to him for some help and some support, and I said, look, bro, these folks are trying to kick me out. I'm not doing well. I need your help. And so he served as an advocate for me when it came down to the very hard choice of leaving med school. And so after I left med school, sometime after, that's when, as I sought counseling, from my church and also from the community, it was like, what you went through was depression and burnout, and it was good that you had the support system in place, at least with your fraternity brothers, to be able to kind of help you pivot from that dark place into your next space. And so, so doubt, fear, just all of those emotions I was battling with, and I'm wondering, what am I going to tell my parents, and how am I going to tell, just like what's next? Like I just, so many questions, and I lean on my faith, family, and friends, and just taking it one day at a time and seeking out the support. And in fact, I'm actually an advocate now of helping to normalize self-care and getting therapy, particularly for black men. And that's been part of my own unique challenge to myself is to normalize self-care, whether that's physical therapy, working out, behavioral therapy, all of that matters, and it's very important, and that's much more challenging to find in terms of safe spaces for black men. So I'm blessed and thankful that I had enough of a support system in place to help me to pivot, and so now that I've lived through that, I'm able to serve as a resource now to say, this is what I did, this is how I got through, and this is what I'm doing right now.
That's amazing. That's very powerful. I think a lot of people don't realize that they're depressed, and I think it's a lot harder for people that are high achievers to admit that they're depressed.
Right.
Because you're so used to success that when you're not being so successful, it really hits you in the face really hard. A guy that gets gets straight A's and gets their first B probably reacts way worse than a guy that gets B's and A's and grades. And so it's really powerful to say that, like a lot of people, as I said again, I'm going to keep on repeating, a lot of people that probably read your book or probably see you at this point now in your life will have no idea of a struggle, right? Because a lot of people, they see the tip of the iceberg where they see the success that you have achieved, but they see what it took underneath the water to achieve that success, you know, the struggles and obstacles and stuff. So I think this book is a really good idea to show people, like, I think books in general or podcasts like this are a good idea to show people, like, below that iceberg, I struggled as well, or I needed help as well. So, so go from the formula. What sparked you to say I want to share my story in the form of a book?
Yeah, so a few things. One is that I knew that I had a message and a story to share, and um, I just began to kind of feel this passion or desire to journal, and in fact, most of my books came from my journal. Like I just literally transcribed, my lived experiences that I journaled over the past, several years, and put it into a format, that people could read and take, and hopefully it's enriching. So, that was one part of it, and then another part of it too was okay based upon your experience, as a conscious black male that's highly educated, that navigates all of these different circles, how can I take this content and monetize it and create ways in which I could, frankly, serve as a resource, but also get paid, So
Yeah.
and, and so part of the next move now is to take the content of the book and to monetize it in multiple, kind of streams of revenue. And so whether that means, creating online courses or, doing podcasts, of course, doing interviews, speaking engagements, YouTube, covering all of those bases in terms of, okay, this is my story. And, I want to make sure that I'm leaving the world a better place because of what I've shared, being transparent and also being inspired because, yes, there's always a story behind the glory. Like people tend to focus on the product or the end of a thing, but can you really appreciate the process or what somebody has to go through to get to where they are, right?
Right. I like that.
And I've always been someone that wants to create or frame a balanced perspective, a balanced narrative about how I got from where I was to where I am today, and just lay it out and to give tips and advice and how-tos and guides and whatnot as to these are the keys to success. These are the things that I did or didn't do. These are things that you can do to make your life that much better. So those are things that drive me that drove me to write the book, but also to expand even further, in terms of what I'm doing next.
What were some obstacles while you were writing a book?
I don't think there were any obstacles actually. I've gotten that question before. I guess the biggest thing for me was just to budget, because I had to hire a business coach, a writing coach, an editor, a proofreader, a graphic designer. So I guess just being mindful of your budget is always good. But I had lived long enough to know, okay, and I did my own research, to know, okay, this is what you need to be saving or investing in to make sure that you're making good progress. So, I've always been very disciplined. I mean, while I was writing a book, I would spend, so I had like an outline or a map, and so I would spend about 15 to 30 minutes per day, Monday through Friday, just kind of writing, and then on the weekends I would write for about an hour or two, and I did that over the course of about 90 days. And as far as actual writing hours, it took about 40 writing hours over the course of about 90 days. And so, I had my schedule. I was focused. I was disciplined. I said, look, this is something that, right now when I have some time and a bandwidth and the drive for it, okay, get it down on paper. And then with your support system, your team, make sure that you're covering all the bases and that you're spending wisely, that you're doing all that that you need to do to get this book across the finish line. So
you set your own schedule? You set your own writing schedule?
Yes.
How did you know to set a writing schedule? Did someone tell you to write? How did you find this template of 90 days and an hour and 30 minutes? How did you?
Yes.
Did you just guess, or you made it up yourself, or what?
So I listened to a lot of webinars and podcasts, and I did a lot of reading and research into how other people wrote their books. Mm-hmm. And then I invested in a writing coach, and who she was very supportive, and she laid out a great outline. She really kind of talked through step-by-step process as to how you need to be thinking about approaching the book, what things you need to be doing, and just laid it out step by step. These are things that you can be doing, and then to get from actually drafting it to becoming self-published. That's a whole nother, part of it too. So if I'm reading, research, webinars, podcasts, you know, other conversations with mentors and advisors who've done it, all of that all helped me to kind of create my own, kind of unique process that I put in place and that I put in my book to also share with the world to say, these are ways in which I wrote my book, and these are the resources that I used to ensure that I got my book done.
Wow, that's it seems like it's just. I mean, I know this sounds like I don't want to discredit or diminish, but it seems like the information's out there that if you really want to do anything, you can do anything you want. Like,
yeah,
if you want to write a book, there's really no reason to stop you because
there's no excuse.
There's no excuse. Like, anyone can write a book, and I'm not saying that you're just anyone, but anyone can write a book. Anyone can do a podcast. I tell that to anyone. I definitely use that one as like, if you got a microphone and you feel comfortable talking to people, you can do a podcast. I guess if you feel comfortable writing, you can do a book.
Definitely. I mean,
and also the information's out there. Like, if you want to know, you can, like you said, find a coach or find someone, a mentor. I had a podcast mentor, someone that told me how to start a podcast, and I just talked to them on the phone and wrote down their ideas and just did what they told me to do.
Right.
It's not that hard. Like, it's not really that hard once you just kind of execute a plan. So you didn't really have as many challenges. What was one of the unexpected things that came from you writing a book? Like, wow, I never expected that. Unexpected, even successes. Like, did someone approach you on the street and say, I read your book? Like, what unexpected accomplishment has come out of this book that you didn't foresee?
I think maybe having the opportunity to put my heart into a tangible product that people can walk away with and have their lives changed has been so life-changing for me. Like, for me to be transparent about my story and to see so far how people's lives have been changed based upon what they've shared about the various elements in which they've read, from the book. I mean, that's been the most satisfying, and the thing about it is that this is just the beginning. Like, I literally, I haven't even done a book signing yet, but I've been very intentional about getting and gifting this book into the hands of as many key people as is possible. So, for example, the Congressional Black Caucus did the swearing in of their members about 2 weeks ago. And so part of my strategy now as a Hill staffer or as someone that works on a Hill is to ensure that I get this book into the hands of every member of Congress or their staff. And, at the state level, I have a lot of friends that are state legislators and also friends that are local council members. So, part of my strategy is to get the contents of this book into as many hands as possible. So this is kind of a season of sowing for me, like sowing the book into people, because I know that the seed will germinate and it'll blossom and bloom for years to come. And so with the content of the book, in terms of the issue areas that I cover, whether it's health equity, health disparities, the STEM fields, the school to prison pipeline, I cover staff diversity on Capitol Hill. I cover mental health and well-being. I cover the opioid epidemic. I mean, it's a wide range of issue areas, right? So it really, I'm able to get the policy recommendations, that I drafted into the hands of people that I know have, a seat at the table. And, that's just one way for me to get my name out there, just to say, hey, this is someone who wants to give back, wants to serve, and this is just one way in which I'm helping to make this place or this world better than how I found it.
Wow! So you're grinding. This is the grind season right now.
Yeah, man.
No, the foot on the pedal. You are going full throttle.
Absolutely.
So like, what is next? Like, what do you want to do next with this? Like, what do you want to do next? Do you want to write a book 2? What do you want to do?
So right now my focus is on packaging some of the content of the book into online courses. Um, and so I have a course coach who is walking me step by step through that process as well, right? So like a mentor advisor type thing. So that's where I am currently at in terms of some of the content of the book. I'm also reaching out to various other entities with my target audience in mind. And so, I have a whole long list of individuals and contacts and organizations that I'm going to be pitching the book to again, kind of build out my portfolio and to just plant seeds. But as far as the short term, my focus is on taking some content of the book and creating a few courses that I'll be sharing with the world stage. And then along the way, I'll be doing speaking engagements and panel discussions and keynote speaking, all of that too. So those are kind of like my short and kind of midterm goals.
Are you gonna do an audiobook?
So I thought about it. Not at the moment. I'm not opposed to it, but I think at some point I will. Right now it's on Amazon and Kindle, and people can also buy it from my website. If you want a signed copy, you can get it from my website. But certainly, I thought about the audiobook. I might get into that down the road. I don't know. As far as second books or more books, yes, that's in the future. Right now, I'm kind of focused on really maximizing the content of this book. And I'm also, blogging, and so I'm trying to share content, with folks in terms of, blogging as well. So yeah.
Dang, you're grinding. I mean, I'm just really inspired. I can't. I'm getting so not say flustered, but I was like, man, this is really crazy because I think we touched upon a lot of stuff. So I think we're gonna just transition to like one of our final segments of the podcast, which I call it Shot for Shot, where you get to ask me any random question you want that's not related to your book or anything, and I get to ask you a random question. So you want to go first?
Okay.
Or I go first.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead. So I can just kind of, get a feel.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not gonna ask you nothing crazy, but you're talking about Nigerian culture and all that. So if you can give, break it down to what is Nigerian to you in regards to just like food, whatever. Just say, what is Nigerian? I want you to answer that for the listeners.
Okay.
And you can go over the map, just anything that's, anything that you feel like is not like if I was like America, I'd be like, barbecue and
yeah,
I don't know, football, beer.
Right.
I don't know, like what would you say like if someone's like, what is Nigerian?
Yeah, so it'll be goat meat, tomato stew, and jollof rice and plantain. Like as far as like the cuisine, that is quintessential. Now, I know that the Ghanaians could argue, similar, right?
Yeah.
But I know for Nigerians and the Igbo culture in particular, okay, here's one for Igbo. So we have what's called kola nuts. It's KOLA nuts, and it's kind of like a bitter herb that holds significant meaning in our culture, and it's shared and eaten at the beginning of certain ceremonies, just kind of like as a greeting and to recognize the ancestors. And so it's kind of like a walnut size, and like when you eat it, it tastes bitter, but when you drink something, it becomes sweet in your mouth.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, so that's
and you just said the Ghanaians think they have better jollof rice?
Yeah, man. That whole thing was, man. I'm like, look, man. Okay, all right.
I'm about to put it on Twitter. I'm about to do a Twitter poll and say who has better jollof rice, and just stir the pot and just troll people because I want to start that. I want to see who thinks they have better jollof rice because I like I said, I got African friends on both sides, so I'm a troll both of them and tell them I heard that the other person said they got better jollof rice.
We talk for days. I'm telling you, man. Let's go back and forth. Yeah.
I'm about to make a Twitter poll. Let's see what
Okay.
happens. All right,
Yeah.
go ahead. You got your question.
Yeah. So like I know you work in an academic environment. What kind of, I guess, what would be like a random thing that might have happened recently that just kind of left you scratching your head, like working with students, or what things maybe on campus or kind of experiences really kind of had you baffled that might have happened on campus.
Oh, something that has me baffled, right?
Yeah.
Maybe a good baffled or a bad baffled.
Um, let's do both.
Okay. So a bad baffled for me is um the use of social media and just the disregard of making sure you keep things private. Like
Yeah.
certain kids just put way too much out and like don't realize that like you're trying to get a job. Like what are you doing?
Right.
So that's definitely a head scratcher. Like just the I mean even regard like let's just go in the small sense of
Mhm.
Greek life, right?
Right.
I'm so baffled that kids be like, "Yo, I can't wait to be AKA or Alpha," and you're like, "Why would you put that on social media? Like, it's supposed to be discretion. You're not even supposed to know people are online."
Right.
And they're like, "Yo, I'm about to go to this chapter meeting, this interest meeting. Wish me luck." Like what? Like like it's just like the kids don't have a line of what's to share and what's not to share.
Yeah.
Oversharing.
Right.
I like to share on Facebook, but like if I was having a really bad day, I think social media would be the last place I put I'm having a
Right.
bad day.
Yeah.
So that's the head scratcher in a negative sense. Like, I definitely think that we try to talk about professionalism. I
Hmm.
do workshops on like maybe curbing your social media, but like use it as a tool for you. Like LinkedIn is good and stuff, but then
Yeah.
also being very cognizant that when you're going to be trying to talk to employers, be very cognizant of what you're putting on online and what
Right.
your online presence is, and that it needs to be just as professional as you would. Like you wouldn't go to a job interview cursing up a storm and talking, reckless. So don't have that on your social media. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
Now, I'm not telling anyone to be squeaky clean. I mean, I'm just saying like just don't do it on social media. Like have
Uh,
some kind of distance between yourself and social media. That's my
absolutely.
baffling. Now, on the good baffling part is the amazing talent of students that I work with at Mason.
Hmm.
I'm like I said, I even had a college brother on my podcast because he had a podcast. It's just like
Hmm.
things like you said, writing a book or starting a podcast. These kids on campus that I'm working with, they're just so creative and they just do,
Right.
and they do it on their own, and they don't even have a coach. Like you have a
Right.
coach. These kids just look at YouTube and they figure it out, and they
Uh-huh.
just mess with their phones and like, did you know how to do this? And you know how to use Adobe? Like they just know how to use technology on their own and just pick up stuff so fast. And
Right.
I'm just baffled. I'm like, dang, I wish I was like, like okay. And here's another example. Like, back in the day, we wanted to have a party or something, and we just do flyers, right?
Uh-huh.
Or these kids, they do like just for a normal party, have like a whole social media campaign,
Right.
and flyers that are online flyers and like
Right.
Instagram stories. I'm just like
Uh-huh.
next level. I'm like, wow, these kids are so talented.
Right.
It has me scratching my head in a positive way, like, wow, they can do all this stuff on their own with their own laptop without any help from adults.
Right.
So I'm giving them credit and telling them at the same time, don't be ratchet on social media and be very
Uh-huh.
cognizant of what you're putting out there.
Absolutely.
I follow this page on Instagram, and that they have like funny posts about Greek life, and they
Okay.
say just all they do is do screenshots a lot of people saying like, I can't wait to be online, and then like they screenshot it, and I'm just like,
That's crazy.
why are you doing this?
Right. That's crazy.
They're
That's
like,
crazy.
you're not gonna get there.
Right. Well, yeah.
Well, maybe next year.
Right.
All right, so this is great. We did a shot for shot. Now this is the floor is yours. I want you to do any shout outs and any plugs. So shout out to people, your coaches, anyone, and the plugs of all your social media and things and websites and all that. And as I said earlier, I'd like you to, free frame, say everything you need to, because I want you to send it to me so that I can include it in the show notes for people to follow up with you.
Definitely. So I definitely want to shout out my parents, Dr. Sam and Irene Enya. I obviously wouldn't be here without their union and their support. My siblings, Chidi, Ngezi, Amara, and Shema, my cousins, nephews, aunts, uncles, as well. My church family, my spiritual mentors, Apostles Matthew and Camilla Stevenson from All Nations Worship Assembly, and my business coach, Tremaine Davis. He helped me out. I think it was back in late 2017, just kind of getting my business ideas off the ground and kind of getting formulated. My writing publishing coach, Tressa Azarel. You can find her. She's on IG as CEO Azarel. That's CEO AZ as in zebra, AREL. And you can find me on social media as far as LinkedIn. My name, Okey, my K, and then Enya, that's Enyia. You can find me on Facebook as well with my name, Okey Enya. On IG and Twitter, my business is Enya Strategies. You can find me on there, as well as my website, which is also Enya Strategies. That's ENYIA strategies.com. So I'm on IG, Twitter, Periscope as Enya Strategies, and then as far as YouTube, my name, Okey Enya, and my book. It's titled Indisputable: The Story of a Favored Son. You can find it on Amazon and Kindle. And if you want a personally signed copy, you can also go to my website, Enya Strategies, to purchase a copy, and I'll be more than happy to ship you out a personally signed copy. Shout out to my doctoral program cohort. Shout out to the brothers of the Pi Epsilon Lambda chapter seated in Largo, Maryland. Shout out to the Mighty Midwestern region of Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated, where I was born as an Alpha. Shout out to my college chapter, Mu chapter, Lewis University. I am fall of '97. All of my profiles and the brothers there. Yeah, that's I think I've covered most of the bases.
That's like the best shout out list ever. I mean, prepared shout outs ever. So like most people are like my mom, and I had to be like, what's your book name? Like, most people have to like plug them, but no, that's great. I actually wrote down. So the Twitter is Enya Strategies.
Yeah.
ENYA Strategies.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. It's like ENYIA Strategies.
IA Strategy. Okay. Because I only asked that because I'm about to put out that Twitter thing right now about the best your life rice.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Okay.
Yeah. And
well, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much. Please follow up with this wonderful gentleman and get his book. Also, like the podcast, share it with your family and friends. If you have any questions for the podcast, call 571-336-6560. That's 571-336-6560. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening, listeners, and I'll catch you later. Thank you for listening to Positive Filter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends, career, with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, Spreading Positivity of Movement. Thanks for listening.